Okay, another weekly Q&A. It's actually Saturday morning here. I went out on Friday night and caught up with the Proven and Bastion guys at their workshop, and had a chat with them on Friday afternoon. Yeah, it's been a crazy week. I had a few videos uploaded. So let's see, since the last Q&A, we've had, there's been so many questions on. We had the BMC and the Cannondale review. I've had a lot of questions on. On doing more frames, and I'll probably have one more frame coming out before Christmas, and then I'll see how I go in terms of having a break and all that sort of stuff. But obviously the BMC frame had a lot of interest, and so I have got that newer model, and everyone's saying, "Come on, cut that new one up so we can see how that is." So I'll try and get that one out. Also, I've still got to cut the frame up, so I'll try and get that one as soon as I can. But I've got another one, in the pipeline, which I'm almost finished editing. So that will come out shortly. And then we had forks. So there was the video I uploaded yesterday on fork steerers, fork crown, the ultrasound of that. So showing the ultrasound. So that also brought a lot of comments, and it's quite timely with the specialized recall. Everyone assumed that was a specialized fork. That was not a specialized fork. Just saying that, I have found identical sort of voids in some specialized forks, and I found them in a whole range of brands forks. That's why I debranded it, because I don't want to single out brands. I'm talking about the processes. So people. I mean, I've said this before, and I'll use another analogy to try and make it really simple for people to understand, and that is, if you go into a cake shop and then you have a cake and you don't like the taste of the cake, would you then say, "I'm never going to eat flour and eggs ever again"? So this whole thing of where people go, we're going to, it's turned me away from carbon. Carbon's a great material to make a bike out of. It's just got to be done properly. So, I mean, do you think Boeing would choose a material that wasn't suitable to make their planes, or Airbus, Formula One teams? Do you think they'd choose a material which wasn't the highest performing material available and practical for them to use? Of course they would. So it's, the other thing I get is people say, are you trying to turn people off carbon bikes? And it's just like, no, I'm trying to improve the quality and the accountability of the people who are making them, and trying to protect the people who want to go out riding. And so I'm trying to promote carbon fibre bikes. It may not appear like that to some people, but I'm trying to promote carbon bikes in that it is a fantastic material, probably the superior material to make bikes out of, but it needs to be done properly. So it's like the cake and the eggs and the flour thing. It's like, if the cake that you buy is burnt, it doesn't mean you're never going to buy a cake ever again, does it? You know, so it's a processing thing, and it's a quality assurance. It's a quality assurance thing. So these products, they need more testing, etc. You can only control your process by having testing to measure the parameters of the results of your process. So anyway, I'm not sure about what to do with all the questions. Last week's video was too long. It took a long time to record, and then a ridiculous time to upload. We all know how the bandwidth that I've got at the moment isn't that great. Otherwise, I'd be doing these things live in the first place. But so I'm not sure. I've also had a couple of comments about doing a podcast. And I might take that on board. I'm not sure as yet. I suppose it's quite busy at the moment, and what I'll do when I have a bit of a break, Christmas, New Year sort of time, with a fresh mind, I'll come up with sort of the plan on what we can do with the channel. So, if you've got any suggestions on what you'd like to see and what sort of formats, I like the Q&A, but at the time, it can just go on and on and on, and it's just probably I don't know if you want to sit there and I can talk about this stuff for hours and hours. But it's not practical for me to upload all that stuff. That's how I really want to do it live, but we don't have the bandwidth at the moment. So, or whether you want to pick particular topics, there's a whole range of different ways we can do it. So, So let's just. I might just answer a few questions, and then. We'll leave it at that. The other thing, it might be better to do, instead of like a once a week Q&A, you could almost have like an update every day or every second day or something like, for just 5 minutes. Something like, what are the things that have been topical on that day? That might be another way to do it. But I think for the new year we'll try and evolve it into something that's sort of going to be really workable for everybody. And it also depends on the viewership. And obviously, we've had quite an increase in subscribers, recently. There's been some comments too saying, we really need more subscribers. Really got to get this information, further out there. So. That's not, unfortunately, that's not up to me. I'm not, that's up to you guys to get it out there. I'll make the content, as best as I can, but I'm not going to. Well, I'm not a marketing machine. It's got budgets to pay for advertising and all that sort of stuff. So for it to grow, it's up to you guys to really to tell your friends and empower it like that. So there's been a lot of talk on the specialized fork recall. So they've had approximately 13,000 forks to replace. So they've said they've found a problem in the crown. They haven't said what it is. For a period of time now, I've been finding voids, as in the video, in the ultrasound production floor video yesterday. I've been finding those sorts of problems for quite some time, and I've been referring them to specialise. So maybe they've done some testing and they've actually identified that yes, there are voids in there, and yes, they are a potential problem. So one of the questions that I get asked a lot is like, okay, you find these voids, but that doesn't mean that the part is going to fail. And that's correct. It doesn't mean the part is going to fail, but what it does mean is that we know from composite testing over a long period of time in the aerospace industry, so people on the Instagram, I put a paper published in 1972 on the effect of voids in graphite composite laminate. Now, graphite is carbon, but back in the early days, they defined the different grades of carbon. So the purest material was called graphite. So it had, I think it was over 98% carbonisation. It was called graphite, and that was the superior form of carbon. And then it sort of got just generalised. It's all carbon fibre. But yeah. Anyway, that's digressing. So anyway, we know that that voids have a detrimental effect on the structural properties. That's a given. On each load case, it's going to have a different effect depending on all the other parameters going on. So those things, you need to do testing for that. But people are sort of they dismiss the scans and stuff. Say, well, the fork hasn't failed, and it's like, yeah, the fork hasn't failed yet. But that doesn't mean it's not going to fail in the future. So, these sorts of indications and flaws, they come into play over a period of time. So, you get micro cracking of the resin and fatigue type issues, and then the damage will propagate and grow and get to a point that's critical. So you don't, like in the aerospace industry, you don't wait for planes to start falling out of the sky before we decide, we need to test these now. So it's like, do the testing, get the benchmarking, then if something goes wrong, at least you know where you are at the start of the process. You know what you've had to deal with. So yeah, so but that recall, it's a serious amount of forks. 13,000. I'd imagine from a production point of view that a big factory may be able to make, if they did nothing else, maybe 2,000 forks a week, maybe. It's probably not that high, but if as Specialized said, they're pouring all their resources into it, they may be able to do that. So there's 6.5, 7 weeks of production just alone. So and that's after they've validated the new production process. So the question would be how the time frame. So you've identified the fault. You then have to redesign the product, validate the new product and the new procedures to make that product, and then make the product. So it's effectively, if your production time alone is 6.5, 7 weeks, it's going to be at least two and a half, 3 months. So they've said, they'll hope to have parts out sort of late January, early February, and that's, I suppose, if they start rolling them out, that, you know, they don't obviously have to wait till they've made their 13,000 before they roll them out. They can roll them out as they produce them. But yeah, but that's a big problem. Yeah, not quite as big as the problem that we had one time, where I found a fastener hadn't pulled down correctly in a F18 trailing edge flap, and then we checked a few more, and they all had similar problems. And to cut a long story short, it ended up being a worldwide recall and grounding of F18 fighters, and yeah, there's a lot of those around, and they're worth a lot of money each too. So that was a big that was a really big project. Yeah, so let's answer a couple more of these questions. A few people like the hashtag air is not very strong. So yeah, it's I thought it was a good one. Yeah, so does a defect like this make the product unsafe for its intended purpose? I'm sure many products are designed to handle much more force than intended in order to reduce the chance of a defect causing catastrophic failure. Am I wrong? There must be a defect rate or something of that nature that the engineers have designed into the products to ensure safety. I mean, great question, and that's the sort of stuff we've been talking about. No, I don't think you're wrong. You know, you would have a factor of safety in there. I suppose the question I have is, unless you're doing testing to identify the flaws that you have, how do you know that you've got them? So if you don't scan, then you don't know that there's a problem. So you know, that's, if we use a specialised case as an example, if they would have, for instance, if they had scanned every fork, they wouldn't have produced 13,000 of them and not know that there's a problem. So you know, if you're scanning more frequently, you can identify these problems at an earlier stage. For instance, even if you're scanning 1 in 100, you're getting more information than scanning none. So you know, you start bringing some statistical process control into it, and then you can start predicting your defect rates and things like that from those methods. So is it unsafe for intended purpose? Simple answer is, I don't know. There's lots and lots of variables on that in terms of engineering. You know, we'd need to see fibre types, layups, the whole lot. But as I said before, it is a failure initiation point, and it hasn't been designed into it because they don't know that it's there. So so we'll leave it at that. You know, it's again, I can't make a general comment. Oh no, that's not right. But you know, there's so many factors, and void size, location, all that sort of stuff. So you'd need to sort of do a stress analysis on each case by case. But you know, over a longer period of time, it's going to be detrimental. You know, will it cause catastrophic failure? We don't know, but it's reducing the properties of it. Any idea of the probability of such a void progressing into a major failure? Again, that's what we've just talked about. Is it a given or a roll of the dice, so to speak? Yeah, as I said. Is the risk of voids forming and voids leading to failure higher depending on the type of cloth, 3K, 12K, UD, etc.? Great question. Voids are typically more prevalent in unidirectional material because there is less of a flow path for the trapped volatiles to escape. So typically you see more of these the planar type voids on unidirectional laminates. Again, a bit more talk on titanium bikes. Here we go. In one tutorial with prepreg, they debunked, I think he means debulked, the fibres after the fourth ply. Wouldn't be easy from a manufacturing standpoint to just use prepreg on some of these critical areas like the crown if they aren't going to use a manual. Well, they are using prepreg, but they're not doing a vacuum debulk when they're laying it up. So that's a really time-consuming process, but it's very effective. So like on a typical on an aircraft part, when you're laying it up into a tool, you put the first ply down, you vacuum that down, do vacuum debulk, and then depending, there's a couple of areas, but probably the most you do is you debulk every 3 plies, sometimes every 1 ply. So it depends on what on a whole bunch of other variables. But typically on all the parts I've been involved with laying up in the aircraft industry, they've the vacuum debulking at worst case is every 3 plies. So whereas none of that's going on. So that helps remove some of these volatiles, because as you're putting stacks of material down, that's why these voids are common in the thicker areas. You're putting stacks of material down, and then there's particularly unidirectional material. There isn't a path for those trapped volatiles and gases to escape, and then during cure they form air pockets, voids, and that's how it happens. I just have to be honest, you could have done a much better job explaining what's on the scan. Yeah, I agree with you. It's really hard to take a video of the screen of the scan from the reflection point of view. And I'm here by myself doing the video, and I really need a cameraman for that sort of stuff, because it's like I have the camera set up on the tripod, and I'm holding the part, I'm trying to point to the scan. It's not easy to do. So I would have liked to have done a much better job on that, but I did the best with the resources I've got in that case. So something I can look at later. I'm not sure if people are really interested in some of the finer details of the scan, or just an overview, or there's a lot of stuff we can talk about with that. So I agree. Appreciate your honesty. That's what we're all about. Just as I said in that video, let's just keep it real. We don't need to drink the Kool-Aid. And would have liked to have done a bit more with that, but maybe another time we can look at that again. A bit of debate on on what fork it is, and with some people adamant that it's a specialised. Well, it wasn't a specialised. If the inside surface of the frame is not precisely controlled, as in a bladder moulded frame, how do they get the inside of the seat tube precise enough to fit the seat post? ? Aluminium sleeve ? Good question. Often they bond a sleeve in, so it's either a carbon sleeve. The older bikes had an aluminium sleeve, but then they had some galvanic corrosion issues and stuff with that. So sometimes they'll mould it to be a smaller diameter, and then they'll ream it to the correct size. So there's a number of ways around that. But most common is it's an insert which is then bonded in at a later stage. That wouldn't be the specialised fork they just recalled. No, it wasn't, but I have seen similar in specialised forks. Love it. Let's just keep it real. Should have been the title. Yeah, look, there's so many different ways for titles. It's called a planar void because it's planar and it's a void. Well, that's what I said. That's right up there with, if paint had structural properties, bikes would be made of paint. I'm glad you like the little bit of humour I'm trying to bring to it. I mean, it's a serious topic. It's a very serious topic. People can get hurt and and even get killed, and it's a very serious topic. However, sometimes by bringing a little bit of dry humour, the message gets across a little bit better. Sometimes people remember that. So so I try and bring a bit of humour into it when I can. Have you ever thought of measuring frame tolerances as a measure of build quality? I've not really heard of massive failure within Cannondale, but they do seem to be the worst QC regarding parallel and angular misalignment of the bottom bracket shell, along with typically undersized BB shells which crush bearings. I touched on some of those parameters before with bottom bracket misalignment. Now, with the BB30, if you get it right, it's fine. If you get it wrong, it's obviously not very good. And the variability in the processing on those parameters. However, thought about measuring frame tolerances. Look, I have done that, and I have seen when I've assembled bikes, the fits and all that sort of stuff. I haven't. It's not like I'm going to put it on a granite table and run a CMM over it. I don't have a CMM for a start, but I think that would be an interesting one to do, actually, to have a number of frames and run them through a CMM. And if you don't, a CMM is contour measuring machine for those not familiar. So it's basically it measures within a 3D space. So they have them at the factories. I've seen the bikes get measured at the factories. They wouldn't do every single bike, but they do a sample and do some statistic analysis typically. So but that would be an interesting thing. But I don't have the resources really to do it like that. There's lots of things to do. Cut up a giant, please. I've had a few requests for giants. I do have a giant. I've got quite a few giants that I can cut up, and I'll get to those when I can. I have a Cannondale Synapse Carbon with aluminium C-post. How do I avoid galvanic corrosion? Put either the corrosion inhibitor sort of stuff, or there's a number of things you can use. The carbon paste is a corrosion inhibitor as well. So any of those sort of products, and check it regularly. That would be my suggestion on that. Again, about the steerer compression plugs. What about handlebars? I spoke about that in one of the other Q&As. It's just getting access to it, which is the problem. Look, I think I'll just leave it at that now. It's still going. Yeah, it's still going. I'll leave it at that now, and I'm going to go for a bike ride. It's Saturday morning. It's getting on to 8 o'clock. Nice day here. I'll get out before it's too hot and go for a couple of hours this morning. So I hope you get out riding and enjoy your weekend. And as I said, we've got the lead up into Christmas next week. I've got a bunch of things I need to get finished, and so I'll get that done. I'll try and get another video, and do another Q&A. But let me know thoughts on possible formats and all that sort of stuff, what you want to see. All right, we'll see you later on. Bye.